Congressional hearings are going absolutely off the rails. You have, as we already discussed, Medicaid protesters protesting against Republicans' efforts to cut Medicaid as they're currently crafting the quote-unquote big, beautiful bill, as Trump calls it. And then Robert F. Kennedy Jr. testified in front of Congress. Kristi Noem, we'll look at Kristi Noem as well, and a Democratic congressman dropping a brutal line on her. But let's start with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And he was very startled by this, but protesters started shouting, and we'll look at that, and then we'll get to a substantive moment from his hearing. As usual, not great.
The budget I'm presenting today supports these goals and reflects.
All right, that's a little excessive, no? I get that they will be removed based on House rules, but that police officer stabbed her sign with his fist. He was ready for this. He woke up. If a middle-aged woman holds up a sign protesting something, man, I'm gonna... It's sort of like we've all fantasized in public places about this is a really tragic thing about living in America, but if a shooter came in and then you kind of imagine yourself being a hero and saving the day. And to him, it was middle-aged women holding up signs. I'm going to teach her a lesson.
The witness will suspend. The committee will come to order. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals.
I can't even hear what they're saying. I don't know what the protest is, but...
Individuals from the hearing room. Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be tolerated. Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be permitted.
Can you decipher it? I can't hear what's being said.
I don't
even know. But hectic, nevertheless, as you can tell. But substantively, you have here Robert Kennedy Jr. being asked a pretty simple question. If your kid was born now, which given your predilection for extra marital fun times, he had in his phone a whole sorting method for his quote-unquote mistresses at one point. It was a letter that stood for something, and then he would have them all so that they would be in the same part of his phone because it's convenient. You don't want to get confused and not be able to find quickly on speed dial the person that you're cheating with. I mean, who among us does not categorize the people that we're cheating with? Bobby. Anyways, if you had a kid now, if one of those scenarios led to a surprise child, would you get them the measles vaccine? Simple question. Let's see how he handles it.
One thing that might be helpful is you've previously said you've vaccinated your children. Just because I think this is a helpful answer, and this isn't a gotcha, I promise. If you had a child today, would you vaccinate that child for measles?
For measles, probably for measles. What I would say is my opinions about vaccines are irrelevant. I have directed Jay Bhattacharya.
Sure. No, like I said, I don't want to.
So that everybody can make that decision. But I don't want to seem like I'm being evasive.
Yeah.
But I don't think people should be taking medical advice from me.
Right. No, I got that. And I'm not asking you to give them medical advice, but would you vaccinate your child for measles?
If I answer that question directly, that it will seem like I'm giving advice to other people, and I don't want to be doing that. I want people to make.
But that's kind of your jurisdiction because CDC does give advice, right? I'm not trying to do it as a gotcha. It's just
I don't want to give advice. No, I get that. No, listen, wait. Everyone's getting mad. Wait. I get that, right? Random people shouldn't be just throwing out medical... Wait, Health and Human Services Secretary? Don't you oversee the CDC? Listen, I don't want to give medical advice to anyone. Signing out, HHS Secretary. That's weird, Robert. Bobby, if you'll put this back up, Jane. This is such a Bobby shot, too, this camera shot. because he's sort of leaning back in his chair, and then there's a green organic drink in front of him, and then a separate green water bottle with something that says harmless something, and like that smoothie. It's very Bobby. Did you see he got on like sewage water to test his, what was that? Test his resilience? What a strange man. I would never dare give advice on health, humans, services. I'm kidding. Well, maybe that's totally fine. Maybe then you don't do that job though. Like, just, I don't know, crazy. Maybe you don't be the Health and Human Services Secretary whose like whole gig, their whole thing is doing, you're not gonna say, oh, you know, what's the Patrick Mahomes. I would never want a pigskin ball in my hand, right? Do they still make footballs out of pigskin? Something, leather? Was that ever a thing? The old pigskin? I would never want to chuck an object at another person. Like, but that's kind of your gig. It's fine if ordinarily you're not used to just chucking balls all over the place. But if your thing is being a National Football League quarterback, maybe you should want to do that. Similar thing here. That's kind of your dealio. And I'm so sick of this. I don't think people should be told what they should do with their health. That's why we have health experts. Now, you're not a health expert. Good point. But even under you, your health experts should say to you what you're, and then you can just say that publicly. Like, yes, uncontroversially, you should get the measles vaccine. All right, move from Bobby to Benny Thompson, the Democratic congressman. I always want to say Benny Johnson because of Benny Johnson. Is Benny Thompson? The Democratic congressman Benny Thompson, who said this to Kristi Noem, which is brutal. Career over. Not literally, but.
Secretary Noem, I'm glad you found time among your many photo ops and costume changes to testify about why President Trump is seeking more taxpayer dollars and what you plan to do with that money if you get it.
Do you need an ice pack? Because you just got burned. That was good.
Secretary Noem.
That was good. It was good. I'm glad you found time among your many photo ops and costume changes. Because if you don't know, she is the Homeland Security Secretary. I would not like to speak on anything of a law enforcement nature. Maybe Kristi Noem's going to say. The Homeland Security Secretary, she goes around and gets into like bulletproof vests and ICE uniforms to go on ride-alongs and then go to the prison in El Salvador, and it's all photo-oppy and bizarre. And then on Andrew, who I've said over and over is not getting enough attention, the individual who lawfully sought asylum and then is now in an El Salvadoran prison because of little to no evidence. And Kristi Noem struggled to defend this.
Graph here of Andrew Hernandez Romero, a gay makeup artist from Venezuela. He fled Venezuela fearing gang violence because of his opposition to the Maduro dictatorship and his sexual orientation. He presented himself at a port of entry and requested asylum. His claim was found to be credible, and he was placed in detention to await a full hearing. But he never received a full hearing because you put him on one of those planes to El Salvador, where he still is today. Listen to me. He had no criminal record in the United States or in any other country. He did not even enter the country illegally. He presented at a port of entry. He tried to do it the legal way. And to this date, the only evidence your department has presented to justify his imprisonment is that he had 2 tattoos, one that said mom and one that said dad. Do you have any other evidence to present for why this individual should be locked up in El Salvador?
Sir, every case is used
the
same protocols and the same processes and inputs.
Do you have any evidence other than the tattoos that say mom or dad for why this individual should be locked up?
So it's not just on tattoos. It's who they're affiliated with, their communication.
You have not presented any other evidence, nor has your department. Reclaiming my time during your confirmation.
Just, you would think sending someone who didn't break the law, who's doing, I mean, you saw a really, this doesn't, how good looking you are shouldn't affect the rights that you have, but just as like the aesthetic, this handsome makeup artist, young, life ahead of him, was afraid of persecution because he stood against the Maduro dictatorship. And in Venezuela, so he comes seeking the amazing parts of America with the type of ideology that we would want, and does so lawfully. And then we send him not even back to the country where he's from, but to a different country supermax prison because of the most ridiculous reasons. That's not what America's supposed to be. It's a blatant international human rights violation. And you would think upon doing that, she would have a better defense for the actions than she presented. But as serious as that is disgusting, to shift a little bit back to something more lighthearted, we shouldn't be surprised that she's incompetent, given that she couldn't even PR her way out of killing her dog.
What happens if you are debating Kamala Harris and she says, well, wait a second, you shot your dog and you wrote a book about it, bragging about it. How can you be vice president?
You know, that story was a choice as a mom. The safety of my children versus a dangerous dog that was killing livestock and attacking people. So this book that I've written is full of stories of my past, hard decisions, and I told the truth. And I think that's very different than a lot of politicians that we have today.
Do you regret telling that story? Do you feel like, oh, maybe I should have said it? Do you understand why people don't like that story?
Well, everybody's known that story for years. That's what most people don't realize, is that in South Dakota, they've used that story to attack me in my political campaigns for years.
Then why'd you put it in a book? They've dug up that dirt over and over again. So I just decided I'd get out in front of it and put it in a book. And it was like, she says attacking people. I don't know the history necessarily. That's her life. But it's like a year-old dog. Cricket. Oh, Cricket. No, not Cricket. And then she tells the story of going out and throwing it, like making a grave for it. Sorry if you're sad, but we don't know Cricket, okay? Come on. It is sad, but putting it in a grave and it was sitting there and then just herself. And then with a gun. And that's what the was, if you were curious. And then saying, maybe there's a goat that could be next. That was her inner thoughts she wrote in her book. You psycho. Oh, I felt something in my body whenever I shot that. Is there another animal I can get? But let's just quickly pay tribute. In the arms of an angel, in loving memory, Cricket. We're not gonna forget Cricky. Do. Then Mike Johnson, little miscellaneous clip. Let's not get into Mike's past. That'll get weird.
Well, look, you know, the salary of Congress has been frozen since 2009. You know, when you adjust for inflation, a member of Congress today is making 31% less than they made in that year. It goes down every year. And over time, if you stay on this trajectory, you're going to have less qualified people who are willing to make the extreme sacrifice to run for Congress. I mean, it's just people just make a reasonable decision as a family on whether or not they can come and move to Washington, have a residence here, a residence at home, and do all the things that are required. So the counter argument is, and I have some sympathy, look, at least let them like engage in some stock trading so that they can continue to, you know.
Now, I'm not very convinced by that argument, but if you'll full screen this, it doesn't look like the people behind him are very convinced about it either. It's, interesting. Mike's like, hey boys, come on. We're going to go talk to the press. They just stand behind him. That's our man. Yeah. But I'm fine with paying members of Congress very well and raising their pay along with inflation. But then ban stock trading, please. Also. So he's justifying congressional stock trading by we don't get paid. Wait, fine. Then put in the stock trading thing a pay increase. I have no problem with that. I want members of Congress to be paid very well so that people with great experience, who could presumably make a lot of money in the private sector, would still pursue it. But the stock trading it's the conflict of interest that's the big problem. I don't care if you make money. I care that there's this huge conflict of interest. Ban it, and if you want to include in that bill, if this isn't already the case, tying your pay to inflation and raising it annually, fine. But not a very compelling argument there, Mike. I'll leave it there. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you in the next video.